Hey, welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with. It's the interview series presented by WFPK at WFPK.org, Consequence, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thank you so much for checking out the series. As always, you know what to do. If you like what you see, hit that subscribe button. I do 3 new interviews every single week, so it's a great way to keep up with all of your favorite artists. Today, I am so excited to be talking with Margaret Cho. Let's see, actor, comedian, musician with a new movie right now on Netflix called Good on Paper. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to talk to you. Let's talk about this movie first, because it was so much fun watching that. Good on Paper. It arrived on Netflix just recently. I've heard you talking a little bit about, I guess the different experience having the actual screenwriter on the set with you, with Eliza there. What exactly does that add for you on a project like this? How is that difference this time around?
It's really helpful because it's something that it's a rare pleasure to actually get to act with the writer. And that's really a different thing. Usually it's like somebody else writes it and somebody else directs it and somebody else is starring there. But it was very rare to have her right there in the scenes with me, which was really, really fun. It reminded me actually of acting and doing stuff with Tina Fey on 30 Rock, because she had written it and it was her project and she wanted it to be right. And so just acting in scenes with her was really comforting, because you knew that you were dealing with the vision, the visionary who created the vision. So that's really cool.
But at the same time, I'm guessing you cannot criticize the script at all at any points.
Well, I wouldn't anyway. I mean, I think that it's to me, it was so exciting to work with a comic who had written a movie. That's so special. And, usually comedians work on our own, we're just doing our own comedy and our own stand-up. And so it's rare to get to work with other comedians, especially female comedians. So this was really, really awesome.
Yeah, it's, I guess, not so surprising that, she writes her character as a comedian in the movie too. It may be complete coincidence. I mean, it was complete coincidence. I was watching this the same week that I saw the last episode of the show Hacks with Gene Smart, and I was thinking how I know this isn't a movie about the industry, but at the same time, I thought the industry movies, for me at least, have come a long way. They're nearly impossible to write a good music industry movie. I could probably count less than 5 that actually nailed it. But it does maybe it's because the comedian's writing it, but does it seem like is it getting it closer to the reality of what it's like to live in that world?
It's definitely closer. I mean, Hacks is interesting because I was very close to Joan Rivers up until her death. And it's not Joan Rivers' story, but it's similar. It's similar to somebody that is on QVC and who is a legendary comedian who's had a very long career, and but without the added sort of thing of she doesn't have Joan never had to update her material because she was always so right there. And so it's a little bit different, but it really does capture that sort of essence of showbiz in a way. But yeah, you're right. There's never really a music movie that can really approach what the business is like, because there's so much of music that's so unglamorous.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe Almost Famous got close. Maybe that might be the best rock movie ever, that's
I know, and of a rock era that doesn't exist anymore. Because that kind of budget for touring and the Riot House and all that stuff, or having that much money to make a record, and then they'll put you up on the Sunset Strip for 6 months. I mean, I can't even imagine those bloated record company budgets. That's why I love Almost Famous, because it does actually capture what it feels like to be on the road with a band. But at the same time, that era of rock and roll doesn't exist anymore.
Sure, no, completely gone on that one. But at least there are those moments that you see the waiting rooms and all there, that waiting, and I'll bring it back to Good on Paper too, because you have the characters on here talking about how, what is it, 9 years of casting calls before really feel like I was able to kind of feel that in there, and that's not always conveyed in a movie.
Yeah, the frustration, and also what I love is all of the scenes of the character coming out of the comedy club when she's had a good set. Like she's just kind of like pulling her purse over her arm. And I know that feeling of leaving a club with like, oh, got another one under my belt. Like it's a very satisfying thing. So it kind of corrects all of those auditions where you didn't get the job, because you're always going to get the job when you're doing stand-up comedy.
Yeah. And you come at that from an interesting point too, because you are an actor, you are a stand-up comedian, you are a musician. I should compliment you. The American Myth album that you put out a few years ago, I'm such a big fan of.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Gorgeous Sky.
Oh, that's a great song. Yes.
Absolutely love that song. And of course, Come With Me and all that. It's great stuff. You know, so you do get to see these worlds and I don't know. Like I'm really stuck in the music world. That's where I'm mostly at. But how similar then do these come at you in those, you know, in the way the I guess the industry works?
I think it's so different. I think music in particular is really, really different, especially now with the way that we listen to music, and then we have like pop stars that are in kind of a different category than like sort of the rock and roll of before, or even the singer-songwriters. Music is such a different industry because of the way that, you know, music gets to fans, the way that people support it. Even, you know, like just songwriting and like not being on tour has got to be really tough for a lot of musicians right now, because it's like, that's like comedians, the way that we make money. Yeah. So it's a very different world. It's very weird.
Yeah. Finally seeing all of that, you know, of course, ramping back up. I went like my first show that I went to, a music show, which was a few weeks ago, a month ago or whatever it was. I remember this moment thinking, okay, this feels normal. You know, here we are, everybody's clapping after the song. We're all doing the thing that we're supposed to do. And it wasn't until a song came on, you know, the artist played that we all knew and everybody sang along, that I thought, oh, this is what we've missed the whole time.
Oh, you know, I miss it so much.
That communal moments, you know, but I feel like, you know, at least you get those in a different, you know, in the same way in the stand-up side of world, probably not in, you know, making movies or anything like that, but.
Yeah. Well, stand-up comedy, I've been going back to stand-up comedy shows. I haven't been to a music show yet, which is really like, I usually go all the time. So it's a very weird thing not to go see live music. And so this is like, the last artist I went to go see was Orville Peck, and he had to cancel. And he came to my show instead. So sad. We were all in my dressing room, and everything shut down. That was in like March of 2020.
Yeah. Yeah. Reading about some of the artists you like, you and I have a lot of crossover artists. I mean, I'm such a big, I don't know, Phoebe Bridgers fan, Mitski fan, you know.
I love.
Yeah.
I love them both. Yes.
Like the era of the songwriter has come back around again, which is really nice to see. Like I'm enjoying that. I like it better than if I'm drawing it right, like the last time the songwriter had their moment of the sun was like that 2000s, but it was like the hotel cafe side of things where it was Jack Johnson, John Mayer and all that, you know. This one seems different. I'm really on board with this one a bit more this time around. Like what's happening?
Well, it seems to be more female driven. You know, I love a song that's subtly about Ryan Adams. It's like all these songs that are kind of about the singer-songwriters of the 90s. Which I think is really kind of amazing. I mean, now we're getting super meta into like this thing of like, ooh, the children of the songwriters, or the songs written about the songwriters. Right. This is like it's getting very deep. And, you know, it if you've been a music fan for a long time, you see these regenerations and they're like, oh, wow, you know, this is so cool and exciting and stimulating.
The interesting about that too is, you know, as you're saying, lyrically, here we are in this circuitous moment. Musically, you know, you have like Biba Doobie, who's in Soccer Mommy, who's completely saluting the 90s on top of that. So they're musically even taking that on. I mean, that layer upon layer upon layer. That's fun.
I love them both too. Soccer Mommy, I think, and Beach Bunny are like my favorite young women out there and playing, and they're like straight out of the Riot Girl loins. I mean, they are the eggs that we've dropped. And you know, like I look at that and I'm like, I can hear the Babes in Toyland. I hear a little Bikini Kill. I hear like Velocity Girl. Like
Absolutely.
Velocity Girl, actually, it's like a very sub pop kind of like sound that I'm like, oh, I hear the DNA of all of these girls that were playing in their underwear and like baseball shirts and ex girl dresses. It's also like the Kim Gordon thing. It's like we feel like the grandmothers of the scene, and I'm so appreciative. That's why I like really wanted to go to the last Coachella, the two before now, where it was at Beach Bunny and it was Orville Peck, and so hopefully that'll happen again.
No one ever brings up Velocity Girl. I've got a CMJ magazine from 90 whatever, like right next to me off camera with Velocity Girl as the cover. It's fun.
I love Velocity Girl. Velocity Girl, people talk a lot of course, I love Nirvana and I love Hole and, and I love all of those bands that, Pearl Jam, of course. But there is sort of like that little bit, like you go a little bit underneath and then you hear like Velocity Girl, Belly. It's like all of these bands that are just go slightly deeper. It's just so, they're so meaningful to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I could go on with you about this music thing, I know, but I do want to bring it back around to the movie, to the subject at hand here, because there are so many good moments in this. I definitely want to ask about the skin moments and how that played out for you. Like, here you are, for anyone who hasn't seen it, you have your guy and he is his belt or his side, it gets accidentally smashed in a door and a chunk of his skin comes off, and you're. Right. It's a moment I didn't expect. It's absolute. I didn't know we were getting that kind of moment. Like, how did that read? Tell me about just what was going on there.
The hardest part about that section was the door actually was feather light. So it was really, the acting challenge was to pretend this door is incredibly heavy, which we would always forget to do. And I think it was like a piece of mango skin or something that we used. But and it's also not his body, that he was actually with a body double at that point, or there is a body double in the scene. But there's a little bit of gore, but it's actually like mango. And but the hardest thing, and I always look at the scenes in that movie, like think about that door was so, because it would swing open, because like I think it was like on an angle, so it was just like plywood. It's very funny.
But the whole thing about trying to really I'm going to put the skin back. Like, what a moment, like of thought in the character's mind.
That just seems like that's the logical thing to do. It's just like, well, maybe this didn't happen. Maybe it'll be fine. It'll be fine. I really love doing that sequence. It was to me, it's got very Bound vibes, which is one of my favorite movies from the 90s with Gina Gershon and Jennifer Tilly. It's an early Wachowski movie, and it's such a it's got that great sort of like 90s dark thriller element with comedy.
Yeah, absolutely. So with a movie like this, and I'll do one of the trivial type of questions here too, does it open the door for you all to be sharing like your dating horror stories that have gone on?
Yeah, well, I think so. I mean, I've had a bunch of them, especially because I date women too, and trans and non-binary people. So it's like I have so many experiences of dating that I think the most horror stories happen with men, though. It seems to be like exclusive to guys that are just weird. It always comes out weird. With women, it's more like, oh, this didn't work out because we weren't attracted to each other. Or with trans people, it's just like whatever happened, it didn't happen. Sometimes it did. But then with guys, like I was dating, like computer dating. Gosh, internet dating in the 90s was real weird.
I bet. Because
you would never see the person.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't know because they didn't have like reverse image search on Google. So you weren't exactly entirely sure. So you would sort of go out with people just sort of based on their description of what they said they look like. And sometimes you would get just really, get it so wrong and so mixed up. And there was another man who was full on dating another woman, living with her. And she called me once and she was like, "Who is this?" And I'm like, "Who's this?" And I'm his girlfriend. I'm his girlfriend. It was one of those.
Right.
So that was like in 2000. Y2K held a lot of confusing rom-com moments.
Yeah. Luckily, I was I was a teen in the 90s, but probably too young to be actually internet dating. But nobody, I mean, we were in the chat rooms. Nobody said the right thing. None of us were honest.
No, it's like people didn't really know exactly how to present themselves online at that point, or they didn't feel like they had to be honest. But I always was, just because I was like, well, I'm considering dating you, so like I want to be honest and upfront. And I would just say that, well, you can watch me on a stand-up comedy show or something, on TV. You can watch me on Evening at the Improv. It's really me. And so they could see me, and so, but it was always very strange. Hooking up with people on an IRC channel, right, or some kind of America Online chat room.
Yeah, a whole new level of blind dating on that one.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
absolutely. Well, I love the movie. Good on paper. I love everything you do. I'm such a fan of what you do. I'm hoping for another album at some point, if that's in the works. Is that coming?
Yes. It's coming. It's coming. I have switched over to, I have a Moog grandmother and a Mellotron. So we have a piano-based album coming soon. Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
I'll be looking forward to it. Margaret, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about all this. It's been a real pleasure.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.